Mainstream media figures love to complain that social media is destroying democracy and corrupting the truth because there's so much alleged misinformation on the platforms. But according to a new study, people who chose to deactivate Facebook and Instagram were little better off on net. The study found that staying off those sites in the final stretches of the election had little or no effect on people's political views. Now, the study comes from the National Academy of Science and looks at behavior from the 2020 election. Facebook remains the platform with the largest effects on political outcomes, as the study found larger impacts from Facebook deactivation than from Instagram. Now, those who cut off their social media accounts were less likely to donate to a candidate, attend a protest or rally, and convince someone else to vote. However, their own likelihood of voting was not impacted.
Users who deactivated their accounts were less likely to fall for hoaxes and succumb to misinformation, but they were also less likely to answer questions about the news correctly. The implication being that loss of access to social media might not be the magic cure so many experts seem to think it is. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Robbie, but I'm reading those results as saying you don't know anything about anything if you're not on social media, so you don't know a hoax, but you also don't know the facts that are true.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So you weren't sure they weren't getting the things that go viral that are wrong or fake or whatever. Sure, but they were also actually less informed about real, actual news. So the study's authors were like, on net, how much better off are you if you consciously deactivate? And, I think that's a helpful result to, maybe keep us all a little sober here, as social media is increasingly described in panic-stricken terms by so many major media figures, by so many, social science researchers, experts. Jonathan Haidt has been on this for a while now about how bad and harmful social media is for kids, specifically in terms of the kind of addiction and depression. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of arguments, too, about how it's corrupting our democracy and having, all of these bad effects. Some of that overlaps with the 2016 narratives about Russian influence. And look, it's obviously the case that people can be too online and that can be unhealthy and they should log off from time to time. But it's also true that social media is a good place to get a lot of information, some of it accurate. And it seems always to me a little self-serving for traditional TV and print media figures to say, yeah, you should just get all your information from us. How dare you avoid the gatekeepers, go straight to social media and hear it from people we've not vetted or approved of?
Yeah, I mean, the other shocking part of this study to me is that Facebook has the most impact on people's, on political outcomes. What do you make of that? Because it does seem to me that, at least from a generational perspective, millennials and younger, there's been a real divestment from Facebook. But is it that more serious politics in terms of like get out the vote campaigns and stuff are still done through Facebook as opposed to the other apps?
Now, so I think I could be right. This might have only looked at Facebook and Instagram, so it might only be comparing these. Does it say in there?
Facebook remains the platform with the largest effect on political outcomes.
So the reason they say that is
as vis-a-vis Instagram,
because there's massive political advertising on Facebook done by the campaigns. Millions and millions and millions of dollars spent by the campaigns. That's always why it's funny when they would say, again, going back to 2016, that, Russia spent X amount of dollars trying to, do fake bot farms. Like, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of money the actual campaign team spent. So that was the case. Now, again, we're looking at 4 years ago now. So whether that will be the case again, I do think Facebook has diminished in importance to our national discourse substantially. Certainly they're having trouble attracting younger, newer users to the platform. There's still a lot of older Americans, though, that it will remain the default social media site, perhaps for some time. I do think it's being, outcompeted in terms of it kind of did this to itself on purpose as a media platform. Facebook consciously decided to stop giving so much traffic to offsite links to news sites in 2019, 2020. So it is no longer as essential for that as it was before.
Yeah, I just Googled it, and this is on me, being in my own bubble with my own perspective, because Facebook remains the most popular social network worldwide as of April 2024. By a significant amount, followed by YouTube, followed by Instagram, that is only 2/3 as big as Facebook, followed by WhatsApp, which is about even Stevens with Instagram, and then followed by TikTok, which is about half as Facebook. For me, even though I'm not on TikTok, I have an account, but I'd never touch it. I find TikTok to be incredibly influential because it seems as though everything that I look at on Twitter and everything that I look at on Instagram are in fact TikToks that have just been moved to those other apps. And I do wonder what it is about TikTok in particular that does seem to be very well suited to kind of like funneling information. Is it just it's a video format but short as opposed to YouTube, which is a longer format? Is there something about it that is easier to share than perhaps other kinds of format? Because it does seem, especially given the TikTok ban, which is kind of the silent partner to this conversation, undeniable that there's an incredible political impact coming from that platform in particular.
Yeah, you're right that the impact is felt on other sites. I too interact with TikTok content almost exclusively from its appearance on Twitter and on Instagram, which are the platforms I understand better. And frankly, this is a little bit true of how how tweets impacted the political conversation. Is Donald Trump is tweeting, or back when he was on Twitter, and then those were being broadcasted to viewers. They're being talked about on TV and on cable news, and they're being written about. So it is always kind of like the platform can have an impact, even if it's not you're literally there on the platform consuming the content in the form and in the manner intended by the people doing it.
Yeah, only 22% of Americans say they ever use Twitter, as compared to 68% for Facebook. And yet Twitter does have this incredible outsized influence. And then even within Twitter, I think it's like 3% of all Twitter users create like 80% of all the Twitter
Twitter
content.
had an outsized role and continues to have an outsized role in political discourse because it is the preferred social media site of us, of journalists and of campaigns, of political, I mean, not in terms of actual campaign advertising, but in terms of press releases and communications being put out by political leaders. When a major Democrat or Republican in the Senate wants to say something about going on, they're going to tweet it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. How these things are going to shape out is also very interesting, but there's just so much fear about the influence of social media that I find a little hysterical.
I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but I distinctly remember seeing an ad or a story, a newspaper story from yesteryear that showed a picture of a bunch of men heading to work on like the Metro North line in New York, all holding their newspapers up in the rows, and the caption was something like, "Newspapers, are they ruining society? Look, no one's talking to each other on the train." And it does have a little bit of that feeling of every generation wringing their hands and playing Chicken Little about some new technology that's come down the pike. The extent to which this is something that's negative versus just a change. If the study is right, and it says that you'll know more if you look at social media, and you'll know more of the true things, and you'll know more of the fake things, that does seem like it's a sort of a null. That at the end of the day, it doesn't change the kind of quality or nature of information or the quality or nature of how informed people are. It's just another information source, and those can be as accurate or inaccurate as information sources have always been.
Newspapers tried to panic everyone about radio. Radio tried to scare everyone away from TV. TV tried to scare everyone away from social media. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. I will say that one distinction that does seem interesting here, and I did a recent episode on my podcast with a professor who's a historian of the internet and technology. And unlike some of these other outlets that have been gatekept, the internet, upon its innovation, was open and free. There was this kind of initial decision that was made, and apparently it caused advertisers to panic because they're very used to being able to have this direct kind of influence over the news. They fund the news, they fund the radio, they funded every other kind of thing. And the idea of an internet where you could just write a blog and people were putting information out there for free really sent chills through the veins of the people who are used to being able to control American discourse, both in the advertising industry and in the political sector. And as we look at efforts to rein in that freedom, including, I would say, the TikTok ban, it's interesting to look at it through that particular lens and perhaps invest us more in protecting the freedom of the internet.
Creative destruction at work. More Rising right after this.